Um, uh, I mean, when is the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say? It's right in the very moment when you're saying it, right? That is the worst time to think about what to say. And it was funny as I was thinking about what I was going to share with you folks today, is I woke up this morning knowing that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it, and this morning I found myself lost for words. You see, I did have the privilege of being able to speak to you guys as an audience last year. I did have the privilege of being able to run the pre-con and spend a day with you good people. I have spent the last 9 months working extensively with Chris, Jimmy, and the curator team to be able to produce some new materials for you. I did have the joy of being able to work with PitchFest, and I'm like, I think I've shared all my good stuff. Don't think I got anything left to be able to share with you this morning. And then I was thinking about what really is true. Is there's a question that's been being asked of me repeatedly, time and time again, through the entire part of this weekend. And the question that's been continually asked of me is, how do I get to be able to do the stuff that you do like the way that you do it? And then people will ask me again, and then they'd ask me, hey Phil, how did you get started? What's your story? Where did you come from? So I figured what might be a useful thing to be able to do in this time that we have here together is to take the next 53 minutes and to share with you a little bit of my story, a little bit about where I've come from. Why? Because I think there's some lessons in there that you can utilize to be able to take some of the great information that you've learned at this conference and start to be able to put it into practice. I'm not just going to share with you my story, I'm going to share with you some strategies, some philosophies, some things that go on up here that allow me to be able to go on and achieve things that other people haven't. So with that being said, I should probably get started, and I should probably introduce myself in a way that I've never introduced myself at a speech before. See, I started in business at a very early age. I started at just 14 years of age. At 14 years of age, I started knocking on the doors of my neighbors, asking them quite politely whether they would be interested in having their cars washed. Some said yes, a few said no, but most just asked me how much money I would charge, which I very quickly realized meant they were remarkably interested, providing my prices were kind of fair. Now, I did okay with my little car cleaning business, so much so that by the age of 15, I wasn't going to school quite as often as I should. See, I remember being invited in by my school teachers questioning my attendance, saying, Phil, why don't you come to class? To which I responded with a question. The question I responded with is, sir, how much money are you making? School teacher refused to tell me at the time. But at 15 years of age, my little car cleaning business was delivering me around £2,500 a month, around $4,000 at the time, which is a reasonable sum of money for a 15-year-old child. When they said, why don't you come to class, I would respond by saying, well, I got staff that need direction. I've got, customers that need servicing. Things need to be done. They felt a little confused by that. See, I continued to build businesses all the way through my teens, working my studies part-time around my businesses. At the age of 18, I was faced with a dilemma because I did know that the knowledge that I could learn in school was important to me. I had an offer on the table for one of the most prestigious universities in my country. What I had the chance to do was to go get one of those pieces of paper that makes my parents feel like they did a good job. But I didn't want to go. I remember saying to my mom, I said, Mom, how would you feel if I didn't take this university option, and what I did is I got a job in the field, the kind of job you could get if you had a good degree without the degree? Would that make you proud? I was told it couldn't be done. Yet 3 weeks later, I proved her wrong. See, at the age of 18, I became the youngest ever sales manager for a business called Debenhams Department Stores. And there's a beautiful thing about being in a senior leadership position at the age of 18. Because at 18 years old, you do not know what you do not know. When it comes to learning how to get success, what I would do is I'd look around to the people who were doing good things around me. I'd ask them how they did it, and I'd just do that. Yet bosses were mesmerized at my results because everywhere we went, we put growth on last year, growth on last year, growth on last year. They'd say, Phil, you're crushing it. How do you do it? I said, it's pretty straightforward, really. We do the basics to a high standard consistently. They then said, is there anything else? I said, well, not really. What then happened is I hit one of those glass ceilings. Does anybody be familiar with hitting a glass ceiling, where the only way you can get the next job is if the person above you leaves or dies? This guy was in great shape. So realizing it was time for a change, I got an inbound phone call from a guy called Lord Graham Kirkham. Lord Kirkham owned the largest independent furniture retail business in the UK. My job with them was to turn around broken stores that used to turn over £12 million a year, drop back towards £7 million a year. I had to get them back to heyday numbers, wicked smart. And we did it everywhere we went, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, back to hitting week in, week out numbers that they used to. Bosses were mesmerized. They'd say, Phil, how do you do it? I said, it's pretty straightforward. We do the basics to a high standard consistently. They said, is there anything else? I said, well, maybe a few sprinkles of magic. They said, what's all that stuff? Can you write it down? You see, it was at that point I caught the bug for training. I very quickly realized that I got far more personal satisfaction seeing huge success through other people than I ever could do through the stuff I would do all by myself. I wrote many of the training practices and principles still used in that business today. And then what happened was I got sick. I got sick of working every Saturday, every Sunday, every public holiday, sick of working a 14 days straight following Christmas, sick of an 80-hour week. In fact, the only people I would see that I cared about were my customers. Realizing it was time for a change, I got an inbound phone call from somebody else kind of impressive, a lady by the name of Karen Brady. And for those of you who don't know Karen Brady, not only was she the CEO of a Premier League soccer club at the age of 32, she was also the face of the TV show The Apprentice in my country. So when you get a phone call from someone like that, you stand up and pay attention. What I was offered and what I took was the role of being head of retail and commercial director at the soccer club. Helped secure the largest shirt sponsorship deal the club had ever had, trebled the size of the retail operation in just 12 months. Did something similar from there, working with a Russian billionaire at Leicester City Football Club, and we achieved the same results in just 3 months. From there, I went on to build a property business with a business partner of mine that was a former client at the soccer club. And what we did is we turned over £240 million on our peak on a sales team of just 5. That takes us through till about 2008. Does anybody remember what happened in 2008? Got a little tricky. See, we had a great business on a Monday. We were crushing it, looking like we were going to sell to a huge conglomerate, and we were going to get our big payday. By the Friday, we had a product we couldn't give away. Everything moved against us. Lending markets moved, currency market moves, consumer behavior changed. The game was over. We spent 13 months bringing that business down ethically. We paid everyone that we needed to pay. We kept our staff on board for that period of time. We didn't bring an extra piece of revenue in for 13 months. And I was wondering, what did I want to do next, knowing that there was no future in that business? And while I was wondering what I wanted to do next, I kept getting invited in by chambers of commerce, B&I groups, small business networking invitations. And they'd say, Phil, can you speak to our members, our small business owners, maybe give them some ideas of what they could do to trade out of a recession? Things that they could do to be back in control, to allow them to go and achieve some of the success that they once had. Give them some skills and some change of thought processes so that they could achieve more of what they're capable of. That's what I started doing in 2008 for fun. Today, my business has organically grown out of that piece. Where I sit here right now is I've now spoken and delivered presentations professionally over 2,500 times. I've worked in 57 different countries, 5 different continents, written 7 best-selling books, reached over 2 million people through that entire process. Yet still I only know how to do 3 things. There's only 3 things I'm any good at. One is I know how to acquire more customers. 2 is I know how to get them to come back more often. And 3 is I know how to get them to spend more money when they shop. And I've learned that if you can get pretty good at those 3 things, you can go on to live a fairly abundant life. What I often don't tell people is since that 2008 period to right now, it hasn't always been easy. People look at what it looks like up here, or they look at what a life looks like mine or Jimmy's or Chris's or all the people that you see that stand up on stage, and you think, dang, they've got it all figured out, right? They make it look so easy. What I fail to share in my story often is that through that period of time onwards from there, I also was this close to losing my house, this close to bankruptcy, went through a relationship breakup, had a business partner steal all the money from our bank account and run into the other direction. What else did we have? We had another financial crisis that happened in the world, and we had to keep moving forward. See, I know that you all have your own stories of things that you need to be able to overcome. Yet there's something that gets said to me quite a lot, and it gets right under my skin. Something that gets said to me quite a lot is, my goodness, Phil, you're so lucky to be able to live the life that you live, to be able to go the places you go, to live the lifestyle that you choose. So lucky. And what I've learned about luck is it has nothing to do with luck. See, we make our own luck through the work that we do. And what happens, though, is that we look at other people who are achieving a level of success that is different to the one that you have, and what we do is we end up saying, wow. Yet what we should be saying is how. That's what we should be saying. How? If there's something you want to change in your life, then what you'll find is there are multiple sets of people around you that will actually leave you with the clues. But not everybody around you is often working for you. I wanted to share a key piece of information. You see, that image you see up there on the screen is a photograph. The one that's in the bubble is a photograph of a picture that used to live on my wall as a 15, 16, 17-year-old child in my bedroom. That picture that you see there right now is also the view that I see from my house that I now live in, which is kind of interesting. But I remember a key point in my life where I was around 21 years of age. I was sat around a dining room table with a group of people who supposedly cared about me and had my best interest at heart. One of those people, and I'd like you to bleep this from the recording, but I'm going to say it anyway, is my now ex-mother-in-law. And I shared my plans and my vision for the future, for what I wanted to go and do and build for my life. And when I shared with excitement and anticipation the kind of life that I was looking to go on to be able to build, here's what was said back to me. What was said back to me was, wow, Phil, you're such a dreamer. Like it's a bad thing. What I learned from that is that what we often have to be able to do if we're going on a quest in a direction that is different to perhaps some of the people, we are faced with two choices. The choices are this. One is we change the people, right? Two is we change the people. Take both definitions of that phrase and understand that that's quite often what we have to do when we go through processes of change. Either the people around us need to change to be able to support the direction that we're going, or we need to change the people that we're surrounded with. See, you've heard before that one of the things that you need to do to achieve more success in your life is firstly to believe that it is possible, yes? Yet what I've seen here at this event in certain sets of circumstances is people up here on the stage doing brilliant things, and many of you have sat in awe of them, as opposed to consider that that somebody could equally be you. That somebody could be you next year, if you choose yourself. Here's what I see happen in the hundreds of conferences that I attend year in, year out. They know that they need to dream big, they need to achieve at the highest levels, and quite often the best of the best of the best in any industry find themselves up on stage. Have you ever been to a conference where some of those people get put up on stage, given awards and accolades? Has that ever been true? And you see those people come up on stage and they develop like a new walk. You know the walk? It's like a peacock walk. It's like, they don't walk in this way in any other area of their life, but when they come up on stage to receive an accolade, they develop this little strut. And I quite often get to meet those people. Quite often what happens is I get invited into like a private luncheon, or I get to be able to sit with these people in a unique Q&A afterwards in the event when I speak. And every time I find myself in one of those sets of circumstances, I ask the same question to this audience full of people. I say, so how does it feel then to be in the just above average club? They said, no, that's not what it's called. We are team elite. I said, no, I've looked at the statistics for exactly what it would take for you to be in this club, and you, my friends, are performing just above average. I said, I'd like you to picture it this way, maybe a slightly different set of contexts, a slightly different scenario. I'd like you to imagine it that say you'd just been out on a romantic meal with a loved one. And the romantic meal with a loved one went particularly well. It went so well, it resulted in them coming back to your home. Not just to your home, but a room in your home. The room in question is your bedroom. Following which is a night of wild, passionate lovemaking. And then a question is asked. The question that is asked is, how was it for you, dear? And the response comes as, just above average. How happy and content would you be with a description of your performance in that environment? And if less than satisfied there, why are we so satisfied in this environment here right now if your results are performing just above average? How many times have you looked at what you're delivering, compared yourself to other people in this room and said, yeah, I'm trending just above average? If you do nothing else based on what I share with you here today, please do one thing for me and raise the bar. Think a little bit higher, understand and believe that more is possible. I also like you to look around at everybody else in this room for 1 second. You are looking at the market leaders in real estate. You are looking at the people who are at the pinnacle of this profession. See, if you're the market leaders, what we have to understand is to where to go looking for the clues of what to do next. And when it comes to deciding where you look for clues, quite often what I look to be able to do is I look towards other successful people. I've learned that success does leave clues, and my business now gives me huge wisdom because I've collected it from dozens of people on the way. See, when I say that I've spoken in 57 countries to 2 million people, etc., what it really means is I've worked with over 600 different industries. It means that I've learned that the challenges and obstacles that you think are unique to your industry are not unique to your industry. What they are unique to is people. And as long as what we are looking to be able to do is to influence people, the rules and principles can all be the same. The privilege that I've had from working with all those different industries and working with all those people is I've not just gathered my experience, I've learned from theirs too. And I've collected the mistakes, the challenges, the obstacles that they've had, and I've put them now into my wisdom. You can do the same. One of the people that I had the privilege of being able to speak to and to learn from is this young man. Does anybody know who this is? Usain Bolt. See, I had the privilege back in 2012 to conduct a very short interview with this young man. And you know what happens when you're going to interview somebody who you think is pretty darn brilliant? You too probably find yourself lost for words, don't know what to reach for, and end up stumbling over your lines. I did that kind of. But there were 2 questions I asked of him that fundamentally changed my world. See, for those of you that don't know Usain Bolt, he's the most decorated track athlete of all time. Didn't just perform well at 1 Olympics, didn't just perform well at 2 Olympics, performed well at 3 Olympics and almost every other training race or any other competition that he showed up in. He crushed it to his own definition, writing a new playbook. I thought I can probably learn something from this dude. 2 big things I learned. Thing number 1 came from the first question that I asked him that mattered. The first question I asked of him that mattered is I said to him, you know, on a big race day, that key moment, the key moment when you're at the start line on the blocks before you're about to go, before the gun goes, what's going on up here? What are you thinking in that key moment? Where's your head at? And you know when you ask somebody a question and they kind of like the question, and they kind of go, Here's how he then answered. Here's how he answered. What he did is he looked left and he looked right and he said, you want to know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, why did these guys bother showing up? That's what he said. What do we learn from that? How much of your time do you have with your eyes on the competition? How many times do you go to bed at night thinking, what are they up to? What are they doing? What can I learn from those people? Any of you find yourself looking at even some of these disruptors coming into the marketplace? You get worried about what Zillow might be up to. You're worried about what Redfin might be up to. You're worried about what might be happening from any other iBuyers. You're worried about the new local agent that's undercooking you. And what you do is you spend so much of your energy at that. Yet the best of the best of the best of the best has no care or consequence for his competition. Isn't that interesting? See, if you want to step out into this marketplace and you want to be able to navigate this next season of change that you're going to be going through, I wonder where you should be looking for clues. And I think the next chapter of this industry is yours to write, should you choose to take that responsibility. It is yours to write. See, none of these other providers know what they're doing either. We are all making it up. Nobody knows what they are doing. Chris shared examples of some of the biggest brands in this industry trying to be able to create some form of navigation of change to try and navigate what the next chapter of the future is. They made something up and they hit some dead ends too, right? We are all making it up. How many questions did I say that I asked of Usain that changed my life? So I told you the first one, I should probably tell you the second one. Possibly the most profound lesson I've ever had served to me is this piece of advice. The question I asked of him, I said, when you're running a race, and you get towards the final third, it looks like you're cruising. It looks like you're not even trying. It looks like you know that the race is already done. It looks like you're being lazy. And he went, He said, when I run the 100 meters, I run the best 110 meters of my life. I thought, isn't that interesting? He runs the best 110 meters of his life. He runs a different race to everybody else. He moves the finish line. Where's the finish line for success in your business right now? See, where do you celebrate your win on a daily basis? Show of hands in this room who's ever celebrated the win when they secured a listing. Is that the finish line that matters most to the customer? Well, why are you celebrating when they're not? Isn't that interesting? I want to take this out of context. Take it left of field for a second. Can you all imagine that you own a wedding dress shop? You own a wedding dress shop. That is what I'm asking you to be able to imagine. Can we imagine that, yes or no? If you own a wedding dress shop, when do you think a wedding dress shop celebrates the success of a transaction in their business? When she says yes to the dress, right? That's the moment. When she says yes to the dress, cha-ching, we made a sale today, good news. Did that day matter to the bride? Was it the most important day to the bride? Show of hands in this room right now who's worn a wedding dress. This is interesting. For those of you that have worn a wedding dress, was the day that you purchased the dress the most important day, yes or no? All the fittings that happened in between needed to be important days too, though, right? But they didn't matter that much. The day that mattered most was the... See, you think that is true, that is also a lie.
The honeymoon.
There is a moment in time, Jay's all about the honeymoon, right? All about the honeymoon. I'm going to test this theory for a second. For those of you that wore a wedding dress, how much did you get a chance to be able to enjoy yourself on the day of your wedding, and how much of that day just went by in a blur and the craziness of all of the emotions that are attached towards that day? So the dress had to perform on that day, but you never got to enjoy the dress as much as you would have liked on that day. When did you get to enjoy the dress? When you saw yourself in the dress, in the encapsulated moment in time that stays on for a chapter after that moment. What difference would it make in communication if the wedding dress shop knew that that was the most important day to the consumer? How would it change how they communicate? How would it change how they would set their stall out? How would it change how they would go about doing their business? See, that's what an expert would do. They would understand that the finish line is in a different place to even where the consumer understands the finish line is. What happens if you move your finish line? What happens if you decide that your promise to your customers is not where they think it is right now? It's way past that fact, and you do that work instead. How does that set you apart? See, if I ask a room full of people whether they want to do good at something, whether they want to do better at something, or they want to do their best at something, what do most people pick? They want to pick the best. That is a stupid belief. Here's why. Have you ever proclaimed the words to somebody, "I was trying my best," and known it was a pack of lies? Have you ever even maybe giving it as sympathy towards somebody else and said, "Don't worry, you were trying your best," and again known that there was no truth in that? They all had more to give. I saw Seth Godin do an exercise once, and I'd like you to be able to do it right now for me. Guys, do me a favor, raise your hand as high as you can. And now please raise it a little higher. Right? Why didn't you believe me the first time? See, we all have more to give if we focus on the avenue of better. That's where we need to be able to put our line. You know all of your competition right now, the people that you're worried about, do you know why they exist? They exist because you exist. Their entire value proposition is based on versus you. We are better than a realtor because we're cheaper. We're better than a realtor because we have more reach. We're better than a realtor because we're kinder. We're better because a realtor because our systems are more improved. They are not winning because they are better at taking care of clients. They're winning because they're telling a better story. If you can do the work to be able to then realign what your story might do, you might be able to get to change things. Here's something we end up doing when we come to conferences like this. We look for a thing called best practice. We're looking for what's the best practice to do X, Y, and Z. I want to throw out that idea and help you understand there are no best practices to anything. The only thing that we have permission to be able to run towards is what is a better practice than what we are doing right now. This stuff makes sense, yes or yes? Good choice. We're going through perpetual amounts of change, yes? There's been a significant amount of change that this industry has gone through since I've known it. There's a huge amount of change that's in our future. Show of hands in this room who likes change. You're lying. Nobody likes change. I'm going to prove it again, and even if any of you have seen me do this before, I'm doing it again right now because the point is crystal. Do me a favor, fold your arms. Not that way, the other way. It is freaking weird. Yes? That feels uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. When changes come in, I'd like you to understand that you have three choices when a change comes. If you view a change as nothing more than a tidal wave can do three things. Thing number one is it can wash straight over you, leaving you as a drowned rat on the floor. There is thing number one. Thing number two is you can pull out a surfboard, have a boatload of fun. Thing number three is you can use the power of that tidal wave to fuel the next chapter of your existence. I cannot stop the fact that a tidal wave is coming. I can empower you to make a decision to say, are you going to let it wash over you? You going to let it fuel the next chapter of your reinvention? Or are you going to maybe just pull out a surfboard and have some fun? My advice would be create a combo with the final two, but don't let the first one happen to you. See, the last thing I want to hear from any of you in this room is, I didn't see it coming. And in 3, 4, 5 years' time that you're disappointed in the results that you're getting from your business and you say, I didn't see it coming. For an example of understanding what happens when a change enters an industry, I'm going to use an example that you've all heard 1,000 times before. And I'm going to talk about the example of Uber. Uber disrupted an industry massively, yes? And they really made a dent. Here's what they didn't invent. They didn't invent traveling by motor car. They didn't even invent traveling in the back of the motor car. They didn't even invent traveling in the back of the motor car with somebody else drive you who's being paid to do so. All of that stuff existed. What did they look at? They looked at a process that sucked. Does anybody remember ordering a minicab? Let's see if the process, if my experience is anything like yours. So you need to get to the airport tomorrow morning. You need to be there for 9 a.m. So what you do is you call today to book the minicab. It's going to take you about an hour to get there, so you ask it to be with you at 8 a.m. Reasonable conversation happens, minicab is booked. 8:02 a.m. the next morning, where's the minicab? It's not there, right? So you're making a phone call through, and what do they say? What do they say? It's on its way. They say it's on its way. What do they then say next? Well, 8:17, it clearly wasn't round the corner, was it? Finally it arrives, you get into the car after putting your own bag in the trunk. You get into the car and the driver says what? Where are you going? I'm like, I told you this yesterday. But you politely tell them anyway, right? And then they say, which route do you want to take to get there? And you're like, that's your job. But anyhow, you still navigate them to be able to get there. Finally, you get to the destination, correct? Running a little later than anticipated. They say that's $37.42. So you hand them your credit card and they say, cash only. So you rummage around in your bag, finding the only cash you could find. You hand them a $50 bill and they say, no change. So Uber show up, create a process that is slightly more efficient for the consumer than that. And what do the minicab companies do? They say, it's not fair. It's just not fair. And how well did that work out for them?
Not well.
Didn't work out too good, did it? They stomped their feet. They tried to push through legislation. They said every version of it's not fair, yet still, who won?
Uber.
The consumer won, not Uber. The consumer decides what level of service they're looking for, not the company. The consumer decides. And Uber won because they put the consumer first. I tell that story that Uber won, but did you know that Uber don't always win? In my country, something different happened. See, Uber tried to show up into the little city of London. And what happened when Uber showed up into the little city of London? To the black taxi cabs. When Uber showed up into the city of London, the black taxi cabs went, That's funny. That's cute. Good luck. Because what they had is 2 years worth of knowledge and experience and expectation that didn't exist within the Uber driver's world. They knew the streets of London back to front. They understood that what they offered is not a service that gets you from A to B. They offer you a concierge service on wheels. They were prepared to be able to unpack that. If you needed to know where to go to eat at 5 o'clock on a Thursday evening, they had 3 recommendations with personal experience that they could share with you. If you want to see the sights in London, they say, do you want to go the long way, the short way, how much time you got? I got you. They understood that what they had is a fundamental difference versus what Uber had. So when Uber showed up, what the London taxi cab said is, I understand that they have a place, but do you know what? We're better. Let me explain to you why. London taxis had one point of weakness, one single point of weakness, which was how they collected their money most of the time. See, they were largely a cash business. They too liked to be able to collect the cash. And my guess is that they didn't utilize all of that cash to go through their accounting services, that some of that cash just happened to find itself into other areas of their life. But what happened when that happened was they made one change alone, and they ran Uber out of town. What did they do? Just put credit card terminals in taxis. You cannot get an Uber in London too easily now. But there's a black cab on every corner that is proudly telling the story of the thing that they do that's different. So I want you to understand that you can take lesson from that lesson. Because I think that something that exists in this world right now is consumers don't understand the things that you do that are better for them. They just don't. What is your reputation right now? I'm not going to ask you to answer it, but you know what it is. It ain't that clever, right? What people think of you is not as good as you would like it to be. What people think of you might not even be true, but perception is reality. What people think of you is more important than what is true. What happens in this industry far too often is that you try and steal a listing from you, and you try and steal a listing from you, and you try and say that you're better than the guy next door. What happens if everybody in this room decides to be able to collaborate and starts to be able to understand that what our job is that we need to protect the premium end of the agency market? We need to get consumers to be able to understand that people like you are an indispensable part of the transaction and the house buying and selling process. If consumers understand the value that you bring, what happens to everybody says that they're cheaper? Consumer says, I don't want cheaper. I want what's right. I want what's better. And that is your story to write. I had some more things that I wanted to change with you today. I do want you to be able to believe that in everything you're doing right now, please don't defend it like it's good enough. Everything you're doing right now is not good enough, and that's for you to decide. I want you to take some of the things that you've learned at this conference here, and if you're wondering where to start, what are the 3 things that you're going to take from this conference that you can start getting better at as early as tomorrow? Chris and I were talking backstage, and we were saying one thing that you should probably do is take like your notebook and scribble out most of your notes or tear the pages out and throw them away. Because are there things you wrote in a notebook this time last year when you came to Curator that you still haven't moved forward with? What if you just pick the things that matter to you and get better at those things, knowing what you would look to be able to do is to move the needle onwards from that point? If you want to understand how to get better, I thought I'd share with you my key process. When I talked you through some of my life journey, I did it for a reason. And what you might have noticed is I have no right to be here on this stage. I'm the son of a builder. I grew up without a college education. My mom works at a garden center. My dad runs a small construction company. I have 3 other siblings that do nothing like what it is that I do. I have no right to be here and every right to be here. I made this up to be able to have this career, this profession, to go out and get after it. I was on a podcast interview around 4 weeks ago, and what somebody said to me is, Phil, I can look through your career progression, and I can see like 9, 10, 11, 12 significant level ups, where purposefully you went from being the big fish in the little pond to the little fish in the big pond to being the big fish in the bigger pond to then being the little fish in the pond that's bigger than that, and you were leveling up at different levels. How do you do that? And I thought, what a great question. I'd never thought about it. So I did the work, and I went back into my mind, and I asked myself, how do I do that? And I realized I know the answer. How I do that is I understand that I'm never running one business. Never. And I'm going to invite you to do the same. Stop running one business. Stop running one brokerage. Stop running one agency. And I want you to start running 2. I'm going to try and make this a little bit clearer. Is what everybody does is they focus all of their effort and attention into their entire business, and they are full up. There is no room for growth because they are busy in the thing that they are doing. What I invite you to do is to split your business into parts. The two parts of this. Part one is the business that you're running. Show of hands in this room who's successful right now. What I'd like you to do is the successful things that you're doing in your business, that you're running day in, day out, that have got you to where you are right now, I want you to keep doing that in the business you're running, change nothing. And I'd like you to be able to carve out some time to think about that part of your effort and energy should go towards the business that you're growing. And this is the two businesses that you have. You've got the business that you're running and the business that you're growing. In the business that you're running, you do nothing different than what it is that you're doing right now. You keep excelling at those areas. You grow your efficiency at those things. But you carve out some time to say, here's going to be part of the business that I'm running. Even if the part of the business that you are growing is saying, I'm going to look for new client acquisition through utilizing video marketing more effectively. That is the part of the business that I'm growing. But I'm still doing all this stuff over here with the business that I'm running. But the stuff that I'm growing with is in this new space here. It's brand new. We give birth to something that didn't exist before. It's a new business within the business without changing the stuff that you were doing in the old business. Does that make sense? See, what then happens over a period of time is the business you are growing becomes the business that you are running because it starts to be able to gain momentum. What now happens is when the business that you are growing becomes the business that you are running, you get the ability to be able to do the same thing again. And you get to be able to pivot it. Because the business that you grew now became the business that you run. You carve out some more time to say, what is the business that I is now growing? And you see how that flip-flop approach allows you to be able to create ladders as you step up and you grow. But what people want to be able to do is they want to be able to flip from one to the other. Did anybody in this room start their career as a real estate agent with having another full-time job? Little side hustle on the side, right? And it was easier when the side hustle money felt like side hustle money and your bills were being paid by the job that you had. It's the exact same principle. Take the business that you're running, let that keep you safe. Do the stuff that you know that brings you predictability. Have your side hustle for your new thing. When your side hustle grows to be big enough, that becomes the business that you're running. New side hustle for the thing you're going to grow. Zigzag up to the stardom as high as you wish to be able to run to. Does that make sense as a thought process? I'm going to build on this a touch further, and I'm going to share with you just some thoughts that happen in my head. You know that I'm a stiffler for word choices, correct? Who wants to tell me the difference between a failure and a mistake? Didn't learn anything from what? Gave up? Mindset? Let me see if I can articulate this for you. A mistake is doing something you knew how to do wrong. That's what a mistake is. Doing something you knew how to do wrong. A failure is trying something you've never tried before and getting a result that was different to the one you anticipated. That's the difference. A mistake is doing something you know how to do wrong. A failure is trying something you've never tried before and get a result different to the one that you anticipated. I want to encourage you to fail more often. I want you to get excited about trying new things, giving them a go, fueled with nothing but hopeless ambition. And then when they don't work out, you learn. But the mistakes that many of you are making right now, stop it. You're better than that. See, there are things that you do that are mistakes in your world because you've learned to become experienced. When you're experienced, you become complacent. When you're complacent, you become lazy. You stop doing some of the things that you used to do. But for you to step into this new chapter, you're going to have to be brave. That means you're going to have to be prepared to fail. See, what happens when you try something for the very first time, quite often you get scared, yes? We're scared of the change that we might step into. We're fearful. I see corporate trainers take words like fear, put it up on a flip chart, try to change your mind of what you think about it. They take the word like fear, put it on a flip chart, it's like an F, an E, an A, and an R, and they say that all that fear is false evidence appearing real. And I think that's really cute. I do. I think that's a nice, cute way of looking at it. But you know what I see that happens in your world when faced with fear? What I see is I see F everything and run. You can't wish things are different and run in the other direction. What we have to be is we have to be brave and give things a go. Here's another set of words I want you to test. What is the difference between being efficient and being effective? Nobody ever wants to speak up when I ask questions because I just tell you you're wrong. Success, kind of. Okay, let me try and make this really simple for you. Being efficient is doing the thing right. Being effective is doing the right thing. I'm wondering how many things you do on a daily basis that you're really good at, that you shouldn't even be doing. And I bet if you think and look internally, look at some of the things that you spend your time on a daily basis that you are really freaking good at, that you should just stop doing. What happens if you free up that space? I'm going to ask you to do some mathematics on a piece of paper in front of you. This set of mathematics could change the way that you are productive in your world. The mathematics means you just need to write 3 numbers down. First number I'd like you to write down is this. I'd like you to write down the number of how much personal income would you like to make in 2020. The second number I'd like you to write down is how many weeks of the year are you going to be working? There are 52 weeks in a year. If you want to take 4 weeks vacation, that number might be 48. The third number I'd like you to write down is how many hours are you going to work your business in a week? So you've got 3 numbers. How much money you want to make in 2020? How many weeks of the year you're going to be at work? How many hours are you going to work in those weeks? When you have those 3 numbers, you can create a very important calculation. And the calculation is this. You can take the first number, divide it by the second number, and divide it by the third number. If you take the first number and you divide it by the second number and you divide it by the third number, you're left with what I call your magic number. The magic number you're left with is your hourly rate. The hourly rate that you need to get back for every hour that you work to be paid the money that you wish for, taking the vacations that you choose. And my experience of building any business is if it doesn't work on paper, it will never work in reality. It has to work on paper first. Now that you know that number, what you can start to be able to apply that number to is some of the tasks that you partake in. Because the cost of your labor is real if you apply that number to it. And then you start to look at some of the things that you do and you say, would I pay myself that sum of money for those hours to complete that task? And if the answer to that question is no, either stop doing it or sub it out to somebody at a level that you would be prepared to be able to move it towards. That's it. What that means is you can then spend more of your time doing the right things. What everybody's looking for is a hack or a shortcut or a quick win. I've learned there are no hacks, shortcuts, or quick wins. There is just doing the basics to a high standard consistently. That is it. I thought I'd show you something else that I think many of you do, right? You're perhaps not the kindest of people to yourself when it comes to personal growth. And I'm going to do something that is a little illustration here on this board. And I'm going to do some more mathematics myself. I'm going to do some quick maths. I want you to follow this. Hopefully we can get this on the camera too. I'm going to do some mathematics here. I'm going to do this. Okay, where else might I go? I might do... and let's do a red one as well. Let's do... and let's do a black one. And let's maybe do one more. I got another pen. Where did I start with? I started with purple. I start with purple. And I'm going to do 21 equals. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. What do you think? It is? Which one? 14 plus 9 equals... Oh. Why did none of you say 3 out of 5 is not bad? Why did none of you say, well, you pretty much formed most of the letters correctly, the numbers correctly? Why did none of you say, good use of color? Why did none of you say, I like the way you used the space on the board and you kept it kind of central and it's pretty even on both sides? I saw what happened. I heard it with your breath, with many of you went, that's wrong. Isn't that what you do to yourself? Is that we jump straight to the thing that we got wrong? What we don't do is take the time to be able to build ourselves up on the successes that we've gone on to be able to achieve. Have any of you got a to-do list? Show of hands if you have a to-do list, and then keep your hand raised if you've ever done it. It's never ending, right? Have any of you ever written a done it list? A list of all the things that you've achieved since as far back as you can remember. See, if you take the time to write a done it list, what you soon realize is you are a proven success story. You've been winning most of your life. What I've learned is that success leads to more success because it grows your confidence. Yet we spend too much of our time looking at what we got wrong, where we made mistakes, what other people are doing wrong, as opposed to building on the things that we're remarkably good at. I have a review process that changes the way that I get myself to be able to level up following every major activity. I call it my 4 R's, and I wanted to share it with you today. Following every major activity that I do, I know that what I want to do is get better. So here's how I get better. The first thing I look to be able to do is I reflect. I take some time to sit back, to chill out, to look at the thing from a distance. Just let some space appear back into my life. That might be going for a walk. That might be taking 10 minutes before I pick up my phone in the morning. That might be taking a day off to go for a retreat somewhere to be able to take a look at something from afar. But I need some time to reflect before I start making changes. What I then move towards is some form of proactive review. Here's what happens though when I ask you to review, is you jump straight to the stuff that people got wrong. My review process is different. The review process of my 4 R's is this. The first thing I review is a list of my LBs. What LB stands for is like best. What did I like best about what I did there? And I write the list of all the things that I like best because there's a good possibility I might want to do those things again. What happens if you come off a listing appointment? Could you be brave enough to say, I'm going to write my list of what did I like best? Reinforcing the positive behaviors? Only once I've exhausted my like best, I jump to the refinement process. My refinement process is this. It's a list of NTs. What does NT stand for? It stands for next time. What would I do next time? And I write the list of the things that I would do if faced in this same situation again. What would I do next time? Please note, I didn't write the list of the things that I did right and the things I did wrong. I wrote the list of the things that I like best and then what I would go on to be able to do next time. See how that creates a continuous journey of self-development, even in its own framework of your mindset? What happens if you could just write more of your like bests and your next times? And I said there are 4 R's. The 4th R I think is the most important one. What I then do is I reschedule. When am I going to try this again? When am I going to have another go? Because the only thing you're now in control of is your next play. Can't change what happened to you. You want to improve your success story from this point onwards, you got to go have another go. You got to go have another go. You got to go try again. But you're bringing to that next play the wisdom of what you've picked up in the past. Is that a useful process? Where do I want to bring towards a finish on this? Is I figured I should just probably share the secret of success. And I learned this secret a long time ago. See, when I was 13 years of age, I had some thoughts like Chris had about sneakers. I used to really like sneakers as a kid. At 13 years of age, there was a pair of Nike Air trainers, which is what we call sneakers in my country, that I wanted to be able to purchase. So I did the thing that any normal 13-year-old kid would do. I went and asked my dad for the money. I said, Dad, can I have the 80 pounds that I need for the sneakers? And what did he say? No. So I waited some time, and then what happened is my friend Paul was traveling to America. He was going to America, and the trainers that I wanted in America were $80. Pounds for dollar at the time was nearly $2 to £1, which meant that these trainers were basically half price. So I did the thing that any 13-year-old kid would do, and what did I do? I asked my dad for the money, and what did he say? He said no. He said, but I'll tell you what, you can come to work with me tomorrow. Now, my dad runs a small independent construction business. He gets his hands dirty, his job is messy work, and there ain't a great deal of fun that's attached to it. So I said, like any normal kid would, I said, Dad, if I come to work with you tomorrow, how much are you going to pay me? He said, I'll pay you what you're worth. I thought, that's interesting. But how much? He said, I'll pay you what you're worth. I said, well, what time do I need to be ready? He said, can you be ready at 5 a.m. in the morning? I thought, I don't even know what that time is. But I figured it out with an alarm clock, and I was ready. I went to work with my dad that day. And the work was this, is I arrived to the job and my dad had stripped off a roof of a terraced house in London the day before, and the roof slates, the tiles, the battens, and all of the other crap that came with it is now in the backyard. My job is to take that pile and put it into the skip. A skip is what we call a dumpster, and my job was to be able to fill this up with all of the trash. What I looked at, though, is I looked at the pile of stuff, I looked at the hole in the skip, and the pile of stuff was bigger than the hole in the skip. I said to Dad, so what would you pay me if I fill the skip? He said, I'll pay you £20. I thought, that's interesting. That's half of what I need. I said, but if I fill it, what can we then do? He said, I'll get another skip. I said, if I fill that one, what will you pay me? He said, I'll pay you £20 again. So what did I do is I got my head down, I got to work, I got busy. I filled the skip once, he got the other one coming, I filled the skip again. I did that by about 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon. I'm looking at my watch, my dad's up on the roof still doing clever stuff. And I'm thinking what to do. I said, Dad, anything more for me to do? He said, no, not really. So what I did is I knocked on the door of the house owner. I knocked on the door of the house owner and said, have you got any jobs that I could do? He said, yes, sure. Sent me down to the basement to move a load of boxes around, to be able to tidy up some stuff that he had going on down there. I worked another 2-3 hours down there, got a load of stuff done. At the end of the day, what I was gifted was a brown envelope from the homeowner. That brown envelope I opened in the van on the way home. In that envelope was £45. I thought, good news, is like I've been paid a tip, a bonus. When I got home, my dad said, here's your wages for the day, the £40 that I promised you. So he got paid by both sets of people. What I realized at 13 years of age is that you do not get paid by the hour. You get paid by the value that you bring to the hour. I learned that lesson at 13 years of age. I got the ability to go buy my sneakers. How much were the sneakers, being as I could now get the money to pull? Going to cost me about £40, right? So I had £45 left over. What did I do with it? At 13 years of age, I bought a bucket and a sponge, some car shampoo, and I went out and started the little car cleaning business that changed my life. That's what happened, because I did the work. And this is a question that I wanted to ask of you really in closing, is you might want the results, but are you prepared to do the work? I said at the start of today that I really enjoyed getting to know you all and getting to know the Curator family too in the work that we've done together over the last period. See, last year I was just your keynote. 3 months following that keynote, Chris, Jimmy, and myself had a conversation about the fact that we believed that there was more value that was required towards this community of people utilizing some of my work. We spawned the idea of saying, wouldn't it be cool if we could work on a book together? Started as a little idea. 9 months on, we've done that work. This little book has now grown to this little book. And what was really interesting about us doing the work to be able to create this book is not once did me, Chris, Jimmy, or any of the Curator team have a conversation about how much money that this might generate. Not once. Our entire conversations were all about how can we do the work to make the best possible book for this industry. That was the only conversations we had. What work needs to be done to do this right? And that's what meant I had the confidence to be able to collaborate with some of the best entrepreneurs that I've had the joy of being able to work alongside in my entire professional career. Which is why what we did is we brought our best work to this little book for you. And I'd like for a second, if we can, Chris and Jimmy, you in the room? You backstage? Come out for a second. So doing the work to get something like this done isn't easy. And probably the best thing that I've experienced in working with Curator, and I want to say it in front of this room, is that everybody just gets their head down and does the work. Everybody. In every given environment. For us to get this ready for press, we didn't have dozens of side conversations holding each other to account, checking up on each other. We got our head down and we got the work done. We proved that collaboration can mean that 2 + 2 = 5. I'd like to think that some of you might have seen that here today. I was listening to Jimmy talk about Link, and he's sharing a philosophy that 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 + 2 might equal about 4,650. Because we're prepared to say, actually, if you add up little pieces of brilliance, we can go on to be able to achieve more than any of us can be able to achieve on their own. The other fun thing is that Chris and Jimmy don't do all of the work. There are other people in this room at Curator that do a boatload of the work. And I thought, let's take this opportunity while everybody's in the room, is can we raise some noise just for everybody at Curator that does the work in the background that doesn't get seen?
Yes. Stand up, Jess, come on. Give it up for them, you guys. Eric over on the side. In the back, Craig, Lance, Darren.
And I want to finish just with one set of words for you guys. Curator said at the start of this event that we do it for you, right? Do you remember him saying we do it for you? I don't think that's true. I think they need to do it with you. So I think it's your turn to go and do your work alongside people like this doing their work to say that what we can do in this environment is create a 2 + 2 = 5. So ladies and gents, I've been Phil Jones. I wish you all the success in the world that you're prepared to work for. Thank you so much for letting me be part of your journey, and keep being brilliant. Thank you.
Get up, guys. Give it up for Phil M. Jones. Good job, Phil. Thank you so much. Brilliant. One of our core values at Curator, which Phil just touched on, what is it, Jimmy? Debate it, then do it.